Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They distribute your podcast for you. It can be heard everywhere, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to start today. I'd like to welcome Cavin Elizabeth to the podcast. Hi, Cavin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'd just like to get into it and ask you a few questions on how you started with your photography business.
Uh-huh.
So what made you get into photography?
So it was a really long time ago in high school. I had my parents' digital camera and I would just take like these really creative photos with friends, people from like art class. We'd go outside on break during classes and just kind of take fun photos. And then from there, I started doing portraits here and there, started taking some classes, got a more professional DSLR. But then I stopped for a really long time. I went to college and grad school for political science. So completely nothing to do with photography. And my dad's super happy on how much time and money was spent on that. But I ended up shooting a wedding once I was in grad school. And once I did that, it just clicked for me that was what I had to do. And now I'm living in San Diego and I'm a full-time wedding photographer.
So did you start with film or did you start in the digital age?
So I actually started completely on digital. And now I do actually shoot film. So
nice.
I was digital
Going
first,
backwards,
film second.
kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I started with film, kind of like how you said was in high school. My high school had a lab and we learned how to develop black and white stills. It was pretty interesting. I don't even remember the type of camera that we use anymore. I'm dating myself. I'm that old. So how many weddings do you shoot a year, do you think?
Yeah, so kind of depends on how much traveling I'm doing, but typically it's around 15 weddings a year. Next year, I'm going to scale that back a bit just to have more time for my life. And
yeah, I saw that you were just married. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got married about, I guess, almost a month and a half ago. We just got our photos back, which is really exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I remember getting our wedding photos back. We got married in Mexico. We eloped and went to a resort in Mexico.
Ooh,
it was pretty
nice.
fun. We did the whole video and photography package that came along with it.
Very cool.
I wasn't really into photography or videography back then. I did go to school for videography, but kind of like yourself, I dropped off for a long time not doing it. And then now I'm just recently kind of picked it back up the past 4 or 5 years. Getting into the, YouTube realms, Instagram. I think that's how we connected over Instagram.
Yep.
And you really seem like you got the hang of YouTube. So kind of talk about your channel. What do you really discuss on your channel? And man, I subscribe to you and you upload every day. That's commitment.
Yeah, so it was something that, again, one of those things I started and did it for a while, then I stopped and now I'm back at it. But my whole philosophy was, when I came to San Diego, I was new. I knew nobody here. So I had to rely pretty heavily on social media because there weren't going to be those vendor referrals that are so nice to have. So I really just put so much energy into my Instagram and then eventually my YouTube, where I do videos educating brides and grooms on different aspects of the wedding that might have an impact on their photography or just things from my own experience as a bride. So that's kind of the point of it. It is essentially an extension of my blog and also my book, but just a nice visual platform for couples to engage with me and learn a little bit about things that are going to help them out.
Yeah, great. You did mention your book. I did purchase it and I was
nice.
reading through it. I didn't get through all of it, but I went through a bunch of chapters kind of preparing for our talk today. And the things that kind of stuck out, kind of get back to the YouTube. About the book. The things that kind of stuck out to me were turning other photographers down. So
Mhm.
that's kind of like the thing that resonated with me being a photographer and videographer is when you do spend all that time trying to get that lead over email, you
Mhm.
put everything in, you describe what your packages are, you send that email out, and then you never get a response back.
Yeah.
I love how you touch on that. Like
Yes.
speaking to the bride, make sure you tell them, it's no big deal. We're not going to be
Yeah,
mad at you. If you don't like us, we don't fit. We'd
exactly.
rather not shoot your wedding and you go with someone that you like, but let us
Mhm.
know, you know what I mean?
Yes, please tell us. I did a whole video on this.
Oh,
Like, don't
awesome.
don't ghost your vendors.
Yes.
Because I'm gonna follow up over email with you maybe twice. Like, if you told me right off the bat that it wasn't gonna work out for budget, which is usually the case, then I'm not gonna email you anymore. I can close out your file. You don't have to hear from me again.
Exactly.
And if it is budget, then maybe I can send you to somebody who is in your budget who you'll love. So I feel like it's not only courteous, but it's also to their advantage to let us know so that we can refer them out to somebody who's a better fit.
Yeah, I love that. I'm starting to get involved with a little bit of a network in my area in Wisconsin here. So referrals are huge between vendors
Mm-hmm.
and friends, and becoming friends with other photographers. And my business partner is a DJ, and we work with florists, all kinds of people. Just working together as a team on the wedding day and also outside of the wedding day is huge to me. I really
Mm-hmm.
value that. So going through your book a little bit more, I did this a couple days ago, so I'm a little foggy, excuse me, but uh, I love how you say always do the engagement session.
Yes.
That's huge to me too. I offer engagement sessions with my photography package. We also do what's called like a love story with our videography packages too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of treat it as a engagement session. I just love working with them in that type of an environment because they kind of understand what you're going to offer of the day. What else,
Exactly.
what other suggestions do you have for anybody that's looking for engagement sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think that couples tend to fixate on the fact that engagement sessions are only about the photos, and they'll be like,
Hmm.
we don't need more photos, or we think the photos are stupid. Like, I've heard everything under the sun, but I always tell them, hey, I consider that experience to be mostly the benefit of getting to know the photographer, trusting them, learning who they are, learning how they work. Like, I tell people, you would not have your rehearsal ceremony with a different officiant than your wedding day. So,
Good
like, why
point.
would you
That's
do
a
any
great point.
different for your photos? So it's, I think the more that couples can get to know their photographer and videographer, the better everybody feels, the more we learn about them and what works and what doesn't work for them. Oh, I've learned that this groom does this weird thing with his chin. Well, now I know to look out for that on the wedding day. Like, all these great things.
Yeah, and I always embarrass myself too because I end up forgetting some of those things that we touched on during the engagement session, and then they go, "Oh, remember we're not supposed to do that." Oh, yeah, that's right. Like I had one bride that blinked all the time, so
Oh
I,
gosh.
I I yeah I made up like this little game or something. I made sure she'd blink and then I take the picture.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about that on the wedding day. And she's like, "You're not doing the blinking thing." I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. I shot like 20 other weddings this year. I
Yeah.
apologize." Everybody
Yeah.
kind of blends together, unfortunately.
They really do. They sure do.
So going back to your YouTube channel, do you have any like suggestions for people that would want to start in the education realm? Like, what would be a good topic to start off with?
I always encourage people, whether it's for creating videos or starting a blog, to think of the questions that either you get asked all the time or the questions that really annoy you. And that's how I create a lot of my content, like things that I'm like, okay, people ask this all the time. They really should know this. Or gosh, like I really wish people would stop asking this because it seems such a like silly thing to me. So that's a really great place to start because those are the things that you're probably going to know really well and be most passionate about. So it's pretty easy to kind of come up with content if you're thinking from that perspective.
Nice, nice. Any suggestions for a seasoned veteran? I'm not implying that I'm seasoned at all. I'm old, but someone that's been there, done that, and to keep it fresh for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and not make it seem like the bride's wedding is just another day. You know, I really focus on that, and I really stress myself on that. It's like, I've been doing weddings for years, and yes, this is your huge day, and it's a work day for me, but I need to keep myself fresh, in thinking of different ways of not that, just not make it seem like I'm punching a clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think there's always going to be some weddings where there's just, it's a money job. They're not excited about it. Like, you like the couple, but, they're not like your best friends in the whole world. So I think you're always going to have to put up with that. But what I try to do, at least, is to think to myself, okay, what's my goal for this day? Other than shooting it beautifully, maybe there's a specific shot that I haven't been getting that I really want to get for myself. Or maybe, I've shot this venue before, but I've never taken them to this other location. So I always try to think about getting something new for myself that's also great for them. And I think that keeps me going.
Nice, keeping it fresh that way. That's awesome. So talk to me about your book a little bit more. What in the world made you want to write one? Because I'm awful at reading. I'm getting better now that I read to my kids every day, every night. But that was not. I'm not the type of person to sit down and read a book. So I made it about 190 pages of your page.
You got close,
of your
close
book.
to the end.
Yeah, not really. No, what is it, like 1,400 pages here?
Oh no, the book. Well, are you reading on Kindle or in
Kindle?
Print?
On Kindle.
Okay, I have no idea about Kindle.
Oh, okay.
Print. There are about 224 pages,
Oh,
but it's around 19,000 words. So,
oh yeah, no. Oh. Yeah, no, I didn't get that far at all. I have the print a little bit larger on my
Gotcha.
Kindle. Yeah. So let's talk about that process, because is it published through Amazon? Is it available in print?
Yeah, so great question. So try to keep a long story short. It was a book that I wanted to do because I had written so many blogs when I first started, because again, I didn't have really a lot of weddings to show. So I would write education for brides, which is funny to me now because my thoughts and opinions were so not uneducated, but just inexperienced back then.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh boy. But it's something that I was writing blogs and blogs and blogs. And one day I thought, I have so much content, like let's write a book here. And so I spent a couple of years after I moved to San Diego not focusing on it because I was trying to grow my business. But then about 2 years ago, I just really hunkered down and got to writing it, editing it, and then I wanted to publish it through Amazon Create Space, which is a print on demand. I would not recommend that for anybody who has photos in their book. If you are just writing a novel,
noticed that you had a lot of photos
Yes.
in your book. That was nice.
Yes. So that was something that it came back in the quality of the photos, which is one of the most important things to me because it represents my skill. It wasn't great. So I ended up finding a printer based in Canada. It was all essentially self-published. They printed the book and then shipped them to me and shipped them to Amazon, who does sell the book. So it's called Fulfilled by Amazon, so that they handle everything and I'm not dealing with shipping out and customer service.
Have you thought about doing an audiobook version of it?
Oh, well, it's something I've thought about, but I ended up investing a lot having to do a Kindle version, and that was just an ordeal. So now I'm like,
Just want to be over with it.
Yeah, like I just kind of want to push the print book because I do think the print is fun, and it's one of those things where I designed the cover in a way such that I was hoping people would keep it around even after they got married. So I don't know. I'm a big lover of the print and tangibles, but maybe one day I'll do an audiobook.
Do you think you'll do another book?
No.
No, never?
No.
One time author, you're done. That sounds good to me.
I think so. It was a lot of time, a lot of money, just a lot of work, and at times very, very stressful, and then at other times very rewarding. But I think it was one of those things where I've done it and I can always say that I've done it, but I don't feel the need to do it again.
You don't want to be a continuing author.
No, definitely not.
I just find it so interesting that you did take the time to organize and create a book. I don't know. I would never be able to do that. So I applaud you on that one.
Yeah, I took it slowly. I think that was honestly the key is I would write a chapter a month, then I would edit a chapter
Nice.
a month. So it was a very drawn out process, which was good and bad, but I think overall good because at the time that I eventually published it, I was in a much better place in my business with my reputation and portfolio than I would have been if I had just shoved it out 5 years ago.
Nice. Do you offer it in a package to your clients?
Yeah, so whenever a couple books me, I will send them a thank you note for booking me along with the book itself
Oh,
so that they
cool.
kind of get it right off the bat, which is really kind of a fun surprise for them.
That's a nice, good promotional material
Yeah.
as well. Do you do any wedding shows? Because I see that could be valuable at a wedding show as well.
Yeah, I have never done them for my business. I think for my area, I am priced
Probably
a little
don't
too
need it.
high
Yeah.
for them, but I have considered doing it now that I have the book, and the purpose would be mostly to push the book. And then if somebody was interested in my photography services, that would just be a bonus.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you, you work with YouTube a lot. So have you been thinking about adding videography to your services?
It's something that I have thought about, not as me personally doing video because I can stick my camera on a tripod and film myself, but I can't.
But I mean,
but
bringing an employee on or adding
yeah.
it, because I really see that that's like a hybrid kind of studio solution. That's almost the future of just having that as an option,
Yeah, it's definitely something I've gone back and forth with. I love the idea of having it be more in-house so I have more control over it. But at the same time, I am more liable for if anything ever goes wrong. But right now, I am really big on referring a couple of different videographers here that I love. Because if I work with a videographer and they make me really happy, I will refer them to everybody because I have so many that make me very sad. So if you make me happy, you're on the list.
Let's touch on that etiquette. What do you look for? What do you not like? What are your pet peeves?
Yeah, great question. I think personally for me, I like a shooter that shoots similar to me. So I'm not typically right up in the client's face the whole day. I like somebody who it's a give and take, and typically in my experience, most videographers will kind of let me do my thing. And then if they need anything additional, they'll kind of step in after me. And I feel like that works well with my style because I make my couples move a lot. So video can capture a lot of great stuff just from what I do. But I think the bad experiences I've had where people don't realize there's another team you have to work with. So for example, I've had some first dances where the video team was within arm's reach of the couple the entire dance and I can't crop them out. Like there's nothing I can do about that. Or I once had a videographer shoot a wedding with me and the wedding was up on a stage in Balboa Park. It's this really great park here. And he was on the stage with them the whole time. Wow. I was not on that stage. And he was wearing like a checkered plaid shirt and white sunglasses. And he was, again, within arm's reach of the couple for half the ceremony. And I made these very dramatic hand motions for him to scoot to the side because the one thing I wanted was clean first kiss shot and he saw me and he moved. But man, was that making me sad for the couple's photos because again, I can't do anything about that. So teamwork and understanding that you're working with somebody else who needs to do their job is so important.
I always look out for the photographer because I do photography myself. So I understand that there's just certain times during the ceremony that you just got to be out of the way. And I usually shadow the photographer. So I'm right next to them, making sure that they're not in my camera's angle and I'm not in their camera's angle. The hardest thing for me is the dances. We don't get into the, like you said, the arm's length kind of thing, but it's a circular dance floor. So regardless where you're shooting, if you're not in communication with that photographer, they're going to be in your shot and you're going to be in their shot.
Exactly.
And it's just, it's no matter how much you game plan for it too, before, someone's always going to just brain fart and walk around it,
Exactly.
I'm guilty of it, but I don't shadow the couple, because that's just ridiculous. That's their
Yeah,
moment. You don't want to be
exactly.
involved in that.
Yes.
You don't want them to remember the guy with the camera. That's all they remember of the first dance.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that is really important, is being able to communicate, knowing that things might happen, but it's so nice when the video team and I can say, like, okay, where are you guys going to be for the dance? And I'll say, oh, I think this is our best background, so I'm going to be here. And they're like, okay, us too. And obviously there's going to be some where we might kind of walk around in the circle, but just to know up front what's going on so that you guys can try your best to be respectful and get great shots for the couple is just a really great thing to do.
And it all depends on what package they chose with me as well. If they want the entire dance and is the dance in its entirety, then I usually make sure I have static cameras standing there. So if something gets in the way of it, that's the way it is. But if they just choose my highlight film, I don't really, if I have to move around a lot, it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that? I don't know where I was going with that. Well, I kind of want to go back to the engagement session because I skipped over a couple things in my notes, but you said trust your photographer and make sure you have, or not make sure, but it's best to have like a professional makeup artist.
Yes.
I loved how you touched on that because sometimes makeup doesn't look good. I don't know if you use flash or not, but makeup just doesn't look right when you hit it with the flash. And so what's your advice on that?
Oh man. I would say, like, I always highly recommend very specific teams for hair and makeup to my brides because and as a photographer and videographer, we are looking at skin close up on photos all day long. So if I work with a beauty team who does not blend their makeup properly or who does not hide all their bobby pins, I see it. I see it better than the wedding planners. I see it better than they're going to see on a portfolio. So I would always say to brides, trust your photographer the most for beauty recommendations and understand that your face is what you're going to be looking at in your photos. So if you don't like the way your hair and makeup looks, you're probably just going to hate all the photos in general. So it's one of those things where I'm like, don't skimp on the photos and videos and don't skimp on your hair and makeup because it makes a huge difference. Like I've had some couples or some brides who will do their own hair and makeup and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to blog these photos. Like, like on my end, but on their end, it's like, I see all these things that could have been so much better and they could have just looked, like themselves, but better on camera if they had trusted a professional.
Or they'll have one person do their testing hair and makeup and then another person does it on the actual day. I've noticed that as well.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. And maybe it's more of a Midwestern thing here, but it doesn't look exactly like they do it. They walk in with a picture. They go, I want this, and that doesn't really work out. Yeah, that can be
tough. I feel like
I have to tread lightly here because I'm a man and I don't really, I can't, I have no say over that.
Sure. No, it's these things that we notice as photographers. And I have been on the wedding day having to clean up after even some professionals' mistakes. And there are always people I did not recommend. But I've had brides' hair, the curls fell within an hour of getting her hair done. And then the bride's hair's in her face. Okay, now I'm bobby pinning her hair out of her face for her. I'm trying to make it look good. Or now I'm, smudging out her blush because it was ridiculous. So, it's these things that are, like they seem small, but they make a huge impact because we're going to look at your face in all the photos. But I think on the notes of you saying having a trial with a different person, I feel like that is so risky. Now, if you are a bride and you had your trial with somebody and you didn't like it, do another trial.
in the instance that I had, it was the same salon, but it was a different person.
Interesting.
So and I don't know all the details behind it, but maybe the person called in sick that day or something like that. But
that's not so bad because it is kind of the same team. But I would say if you can have the same exact person for everything.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it would go without question. Back to trust your photographer. What do you think they should trust in you? What makes you so trustworthy?
Yeah, I think obviously never hire a photographer or videographer whose portfolio you're not in love with. But once you are in love with that person, trust that when they say, let's shoot over here, or
Mhm.
I'm going to have you guys do this, all of those things are things that they do to achieve the work that you hired them for. So if couples aren't trusting, if they're like, oh, what do you mean, like over here? What do you mean you want us to like
Yeah.
run around? It's like, why would you hire somebody if you don't get
Don't trust
excited
them.
and trust what they're going to say? They're
Or
going
you
to take
want
care of you.
to kind of micromanage them throughout the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I just did a YouTube video on why you should not micromanage your vendors because you trust them to do their beautiful work and take care of you. And then that just lets you relax. So if you micromanage, nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah, the one thing I always notice, and the weddings that I do, probably 80% of them do not have a wedding planner or day of coordinator. Ooh. And it's just, the Midwest, my area, the type of, budgets that are around. If,
Sure.
If they're hiring a photographer and a videographer, they don't have much of a budget left for a coordinator, and everything like that. So, but the ones that don't have a coordinator, day of coordinator, everyone goes to the bride to ask what's going on. And even with the coordinator, I've seen it happen too, where, they always got to ask the bride, well, where do you want the flowers? What do you want this? What do you want that? She should be the last person you're asking.
Yeah.
And
don't bother the bride.
Yeah. I stress that so much in my, my pre-meetings is, designate someone like one of your bridesmaids, whoever, to take care of all that so you don't have to deal with it. And it always slips through though.
Yeah, that's so important. The last thing you want as a bride is to be bothered. Even honestly, I just got married and we had a planner and designer, but there were some vendors emailing me questions. And I'm like, I literally would email back and say, my planner is the point person from here on out. She can answer all of your questions because that's why we hired her. So it was one of those things where I was like, why are people asking me this 3 days before my wedding? Like, I don't know. And also I'm so busy. So have somebody, whether a planner or a responsible, like take your most responsible friend and ask them to help you.
You're your best friend. So let's touch on your contract. What should you detail in a contract, or what do you actually detail in a contract that you find the most helpful for your clients, which would, not necessarily for protection's sake, but describing the day and what they should expect of you in more written fashion?
Yeah. So aside from, the typical legal things that need to be in there, I always outline what they're getting in their package and exactly how much it costs. I always outline too, what if they want to add on an extra hour, what that's going to cost. So that is locked in for them. They can always refer back to it in case they want to, upgrade or whatnot.
Yeah.
I additionally will have turnaround times in there because that is a huge thing. I constantly see brides on Reddit and forums saying, I don't have my photos back from my photographer. It's been 12 years. And
12 years.
Like, what do I do? And I'm like, what does your contract say? And they're like, it's not in there. And I'm like, oh, so that's something I put in there it keeps me on point, and I've never even been on time. I'm always early with delivery, but it also lets them have this guarantee, which I think makes them feel good too.
What is your turnaround point, and do you do all your own editing?
So I use an outsourcer, an editor for my images, but what I will do is I will edit what we call keyframes. So I'll take maybe 100 to 150 photos throughout the wedding day, edit them, and then she emulates that style through the rest of each of those sections. I tell my couples it's 6 to 8 weeks for their photos, but it is typically more like 4 weeks, unless it's really busy, in which case it might be 5 weeks. But I'm trying to, under promise and over deliver, which makes them excited when they can get their stuff early.
That's the best business premise, is under promise, over deliver. Definitely.
Exactly.
Do they understand that it is outsourced editing?
Not many people ask about it because I've shown them my full gallery. They see what it's like. My editor is basically editing just like I would, but a lot faster. Yeah. So, wouldn't be any different versus them doing it versus me doing it. So it's never really been an issue. And I feel like too, these days, the types of clients I'm getting, they respect that I do that in order to have more time to cater to them, to do research for them, to give them more services.
And work on your YouTube channel too.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know if you can see those analytics or not, but can you tell who's subscribing to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I will get notifications that so and so has subscribed to you. So that those will come through. So I can kind of see who is subscribing, and then I can also see what my demographic is. I
Yeah.
think it's 97% women,
Yeah, I would
so
assume.
it's almost all brides.
I make up that 3% of male
Yeah,
that
you and my
subscribe.
husband.
Yeah. Right. That's
Yeah.
great. So where did you get married? Did you get married in San Diego?
Yeah, so we got married at a venue called the Fairmont Grand Del Mar.
Oh,
It's
that's
this
cool.
gorgeous Italian Mediterranean inspired property. It's pretty much the closest thing to Europe that we could get in San Diego.
That's cool. Did you guys have
Yeah.
a video or no?
We did not. We were over budget in the end, and we splurged for a couple of different things, but video was not one of them. My husband doesn't really like wedding videos, so I was like, okay, we won't
Gotcha.
have one. It's fine. The only thing I wish that we had videoed, whether professional or somebody, a guest trying to do it, were the speeches and then the first dance. Those were kind of the moments where we have some iPhone shots of it, like on video, but I would love to have had, actual video so I could hear them again.
Yeah, I always, regardless of my clients, if they're interested in video, obviously, if they're talking to me. So if they think we're too expensive or they don't think we're a fit, I always encourage them to still go forward with a videographer. If
Right.
you've went that far to contact me and we've talked, you should still do it, because 100% of the time I hear what you just said. I wish we had video of something,
Right.
Um, so that's just one of my pet peeves and biggest thing that I'm trying to do with this podcast is not necessarily put video first, but put it in the same category as photography, because everyone thinks of photography when they're getting married as a must. I kind of want to have the video there as well.
Sure.
So as we're wrapping up, Cavin, thank you for coming on the podcast. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get to you?
Usually Instagram is the best. It's Cavin Elizabeth, and that is CAV as in Victor, IN as in Nancy. So it is not Cabin, it is not Calvin, it is Cavin Elizabeth. And my website's cavinelizabeth.com. My YouTube is Cavin Elizabeth. The Twitter that I never use is Cavin Elizabeth. So pretty consistent throughout.
Does anybody ever use Twitter?
I don't know. I have my blogs automatically get published to it, and that's about it.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining me, and it was great talking to you, and I'm glad we could connect over Instagram.
Yeah, thanks